Hey Tube, welcome back. Today we are talking about two popular architectural styles for designing API. REST, which is short for Representational State Transfer, and number two is RPC, which is Remote Producer Call. Both have unique strengths and use cases, so let's explore how they differ so you can choose the best fit for your project. First, let's start with REST. Okay, let me. Yep. Oh, I guess I need to make the font bigger. Yep. And let me just, yep. Okay. So REST is an architectural style that relies on HTTP methods to interact with the resources on a server. So let's highlight its characteristics and let's just scroll down, and this is its characteristics. The first thing we will talk about is stateless. Each request contains all the info needed, so the server doesn't need to remember your previous requests. Number two, resource-based, like URLs or endpoints represent a resource like users, orders, and you manipulate them with standard HTTP variables, or verbs, sorry, not variables, verbs. Number three, we have HTTP methods, like typically uses like get, post, put, delete, patch, etc. And there is a format, like data is often returned as JSON or XML, though JSON is most common in modern APIs. So like 90% you'll find JSON in the common APIs right now that we're using. So REST is widely favored for its simplicity, its natural alignment with HTTP semantics, and because it's easy for many developers to understand and integrate with various client and technologies. Next, let's talk about RPC. Okay, let me make this as well like that. Okay. So as I said before, RPC is short for Remote Producer Call. So RPC is communication style where a client calls functions or producers or procedures on a remote server as if they were local. Okay, so what that means, because it's not that easy to understand. I guess if we try to look at the characteristics, it will be way more easier for us to understand. So let's just make sure that the text is visible here. I hope, yeah, I guess that text is visible. The first thing we have is action-based. Like RPC focuses on operations or actions rather than resources. Like you find like create user, delete order, or whatever it will be. Also, there is various protocols, like you can use HTTPC, you can use TCP, you can use gRPC or others to send requests. Number three, custom methods. And instead of standard HTTP verbs, you might define your own methods or function names. Number four, custom data. Typically returns specialized data formats like protocol buffers in gRPC or JSON structure. So RPC often appeals to developers needing high performance and more function call-like interface. For example, gRPC is an RPC framework built on HTTP/2 with binary serialization, boosting low latency and robust streaming. Okay. I guess we need to make a compare, like we need to make a comparison between both of them. So if we compare both of them right now to understand what's going on. So first we will talk with the approach. So if we talk with the approach, let's start with the RESTful API. REST basically resource oriented, uses HTTP verbs and standard URL naming for resources. If we want to talk about the approach on RPC, it's action operation oriented, calls named function or methods. And if we want to talk about the focus, Like REST is just a representational state transfer, commonly is stateless. RPC, simultaneous local calls over the network. It's something like that, yeah. If we want to talk about the protocol, REST usually use HTTP, and RPC can use various like gRPC or use other protocols. It's yeah. And in terms of the complexity, I would say REST is really simple. Like REST in terms of the complexity, like REST win this by far. RPC potentially faster, but can be more complex to implement, especially if using custom protocols. It's really not that easy. Okay, so which one to use, or when to use which? Let's try to answer this question. So, okay, you use REST if one, you want a resource-based approach. Number two, you need wide compatibility like browsers, mobile clients, various languages. Number three, you have a simpler CRUD like API or what standard or want a standard HTTP methods. And I would say like by default, you will use REST API. Okay, when to use RPC. So you want action-based or function-based calls. Number two, you need high performance and possibly binary data formats. Number three, you're comfortable with frameworks like gRPC and want advanced features like streaming, more explicit schema definitions, or something like that. So sometimes team will use both. For example, they might have like a RESTful API, but rely on an internal RPC layer for microservices to microservices communication. So you find this a lot. Okay, so let's go right now to our final thoughts. Okay, there is no place to put thoughts. So let's say that this is our final thoughts. So yeah, at the end of the day, REST is fantastic choice if you value simplicity, broad adoption, and a consistent resource model. RPC can provide better performance and more function-like approach, but can be more complex to set up and maintain. Think about your project requirements like performance needs, client compatibility, and development preferences to pick the best approach. And I would say by default you should use REST. And yeah, that's REST versus RPC in a nutshell. If you found this video comparison helpful, be sure to like and subscribe and share any question or components below. Thanks for watching this video, and see you in future videos.